Hello friends, and welcome back to this course titled as Introduction to Indian Writing in English. Friends, we were discussing the text Swami and Friends written by R.K. Narayan. Friends, I told you that R.K. Narayan is one of the founding pillars in this field of Indian writing in English. Well, I must say that whatever we talk about R.K. Narayan, that would be less to explain his prominent personality. We started discussion on R.K. Narayan by talking about his prominence, his contribution into Indian writing in English. And after that, in the last class, we discussed about the post-colonial aspects and the colonialism and the impact of colonialism on the mind of the common Indians who are living and who are represented through this small city of South India that is named as Malgudi. Friends, I also told you that Malgudi is a fictional town. It actually do not exist in South India. But this place is the creation of R.K. Narayan. R.K. Narayan has, in this city of Malgudi, created everything according to his own preferences, according to his own priorities, and thus we can say that this fictional town of Malgudi is something that is, let's say, tried to make perfect in the dreams of R.K. Narayan. Well, friends, I had observed it that it happens with all the major writers of the world, whether they are poets, whether they are novel writers, whether they are short story writers, that they live in the real world as well as they try to create a virtual world. So the real world for R.K. Narayan was the world in which he was living, here on this earth, and the virtual world was the world of Malgudi. He tried to create in the short stories Malgudi days such kind of, let's say, irony, humor, and various aspects, various themes. And in the same way, he is trying to create the similar kind of virtual world through this text, Swami and Friends. Today, friends, we will talk about a very interesting topic related to this text that is named as Swami and Friends, and that important aspect is irony and humor. Irony, friends, is a tone, how ironical you are in the satire which you are using. So, satire is a way of writing, and irony is the tone which is visible in that satire. On the other hand, friends, there is also a humor present in this text, Swami and Friends. I already told you that when we are reading this text, Swami and Friends, we have to put ourselves in the shoes of the protagonist. Put in the shoes means we have to think like a 10-12 years old boy who is Swami, who is going to the school. And thus, I can say that when we think like a child, when we think like a schoolboy, only then we can understand the depth, the seriousness, the irony, the humor that is visible in this text, Swami and Friends. Before moving to the aspect of irony and humor, let us talk about the outcome which you are going to learn after the completion of this lecture. Employ the technique of irony and humor in the selected text. How you can employ it, we will learn. In this lecture, we will look at various quotations, various examples, various sentences, various statements, and various ways through which R.K. Narayan was able to create the ironical tone or the humorous aspects in this story, Swami and Friends. Well, friends, Let us first talk about the ironical aspect in the text. Now, in the irony, we will try to divide it into various dimensions, and thus, in this way, we will try to understand the, let's say, the depth of irony in his work. First, we will talk about the irony of British rule. How, let's say, the Britishers were governing India and how Swami and his friends are trying to create an ironical output of that text. Although the British would have said their presence in India is helping India by providing them order, that is clearly the opposite of their real effect. Friends, Britishers, they had a very common tendency that they are trying to civilize India. They are trying to, let's say, take out India from the dark ages of regional kings and queens. They had an, let's say, ideology that India is full of mismanagement because of the struggle between the local kings and queens. And when Britishers started governing India, they expressed this idea and they spreaded this idea that they are trying to modify and modernized the India in the, let's say, and then they will try to make India at par with the present, let's say, century. By imposing Western ways on communities with a delicate balance, they make India into an impoverished nation within fighting. Well, friends, Britishers said that India has a lot of problems. India is, let's say, the various provinces, they are fighting with each other, and which is why the nation is not going to develop. And Britishers, under one flag of, let's say, Britain, they are going to develop India to an extent. They drain their resources in the name of growth, but Swami sees that these are lies, and so he marches against Britain. This is very ironical, friends, that Britishers said that they are going to develop the economy of India, but actually they were ruining it. Actually, they were trying to suck the money out of the Indian economy and make their own country, Britain, as prosperous, make their own country as rich. So, that lie was understood by Swami in this text when he starts protesting against Britishers, when he runs from his school, and thus he comes out of this fake notion which is spreaded by Britishers and their representatives, the Christian priests, into India. The next ironical aspect is discussed in the personality of Rajam, who is the son of a superintendent of police. There is an authority which is presented through the behavior of Rajam. Rajam is a boy. He is of the equal age of Swami, but he has a sense of proudness. He has a sense of eliteness. He has a sense of dominance into his personality. And how he behaves into different situations, let us talk about it. Rajam hates authority because his dad is a police officer with a pretty narrow view of justice. And as a child, he has been chronically disenfranchised by his father, so that he has an ironical crisis. He both needs authority because of the order that it brings, and he resents being controlled whomsoever. Well, friends, this is ironical that when Rajam talks about, let's say, authority, talks about power, he says that he hates power. He says that he hates authority. But in reality, he loves that power. He enjoys to dominate others. Whosoever is in front of him, whether they are his servants or his friends, he do not, let's say, feel difference between the two. and he tried to dominate like a master to both these categories. He even encourages Swami to rebel at school, but Rajam is also the most controlling of the friends. Well, this is also, friends, ironical that on one hand, this person Rajam is trying to, let's say, persuade Swami to rebel in the school against the Christian, let's say, priests, against the British rule, against the British governance. But on the other hand, Rajam himself is a very controlled person. He behaves in a very, let's say, limited emotions. In every situation, he try to think wisely and act wisely. He do not behave emotionally or passionately into any situation. And thus we can say that Rajam's attitude is always ironical in different situations in Swami and Friends. The next aspect of irony is covered in school and in cricket. Let us talk about it. Friends, I already told you that cricket is a game which came into India from Britain. It was introduced by Britishers. And thus, cricket is a game which is, let's say, the representative of British dominance over Indians, the British superiority over Indians. So, how school and cricket are acting as ironical into this text, into this novel, let us talk about it. In a way, moment when Swami wants to meet his friends but has to stay in school, that moment signifies something ironic about his personality. Well, friends, Swami on one hand is thinking to meet his friends in the school. On the other hand, he is against the system of the school. So this is ironical that whether Swami wished to attend the school or not, because school is not only a place to enjoy, to, let's say, entertain, but it is also, let's say, a place where you meet your friends, where you talk to them, where you have a different world. That world is different from your family. And thus, we can say that a child, a schoolboy, is living in the two worlds. One world is in the school, and another world is at his or her house. Although he is very different than Rajam, they actually do both resist authority, except that when Swami throws his cane, it is clear what he wants. He wants to be with his friends playing outside in nature. Well, Swami is always trying to be in the company of his friends. If the friends are outside the school, he wants to go outside the school. If the friends are in the school, he wants to stay in the school. But in every way, he tried to behave just like his friends. Take, for example, the authoritative attitude of Rajam. Swami tries to behave like Rajam. He tries to dominate others. And we are going to look at it in the scene of one of the school boy whose name is Karuppan. We are going to look at it in the coming slides. In fact, that school prohibits this is ironic to him, since he feels it is obviously better for him to play than to be a prisoner of the school. Sometimes Swami, let's say, the mind of Swami prohibits him to go to school. He thinks that a school is a place for prisoners. We will be kept just like, let's say, the prisoners are kept behind the bars. We will be kept like a prisoner in the school. But on the other hand, this is also reality that Swami has to go to school every day. And thus it makes a very ironical situation in front of him. Let us now talk about the irony of rejection. What kind of rejection is this? Is Swami rejected by his friends? Are the other friends rejected by Swami? So we have to look on it. Let us talk about this concept of rejection into irony. Because Rajam resents his own personality, he rejects his friends. Because he reminds himself to his father, who also uses authority as a tool for getting what he wants. Well, friends, if we talk about the officers which are at the very higher positions, who are the decision makers, let's say collector in a city or SP in a city, we know that these people do not have many friends, but they have workers, they have subordinates, they have superiors, or they have inferiors. Either they work for someone or someone work for them. Either they take orders or someone take orders from them. So, in the same manner, Rajam's behavior is influenced from his father. Just like his father is superintendent of police and he has no friends, in the same way, Rajam also, although a school kid, but he do not believe in a very passionate friendship. In the way he says, you guys aren't worth my respect. But that is an ironic message, because what the behavior really signifies is that Rajam himself doesn't believe he is worth their friendship, and he is resentful at them for that, as if they are patronizing him. Well, friends, if we talk about Rajam's personality, from the core of his heart, Rajam knows that he is inferior to his friends, but he tried to dominate them. He tried to prove that he is superior to them. And in this process of authoritarianism, he tries to demean his friends. And that is visible into this statement when he says that you guys aren't worth my respect. Worth my respect means he believes that if someone needs his respect and someone gets his respect, then that person is very fortunate. This sentence is suggesting that Rajam thinks that in all his friends he is a superior most person and all his friends are inferior to him. Next, let us talk about the irony of adventure. Now, you may think that these are just schoolboys. What kind of adventure they can do? They do not have motorbikes, they do not have money, they cannot go away from, let's say, school. They have a limited sphere of the nearby places of their school and their house. Then how can they enjoy that kind of adventure? But friends, I must tell you that for a schoolboy, even going in a dark room is adventure. You may feel that this is a very common act. There might be some power cut due to which the room has no electricity and the room is dark. So it is very normal for you to enter into that room. But for a boy, kid, school boy, it is a kind of adventure. They feel afraid of the ghosts. And in this way, they have some kind of little adventures. And those adventures are enjoyed by Swami and his group of friends. Let us talk about it. Is it really an adventure without the ironic addition of fear? Because Swami runs away from school and into nature, he becomes lost, eventually finding himself in Malgudi. Friends, sometimes it happens that Swami want to enjoy nature. Swami want to get entertainment in nature. Swami want to run away from his school because he want to feel nature. He want to become lost in nature. But in reality, he comes out into the real world and feels ironical and feels fearful if he is alone, if there is no one in front of him, if there is no one with him. And if he is alone in nature, he feels isolated, he feels terrified. So this is very ironical. But the irony is clear. In a moment of panic, he decides to take a very urgent adventure that caused him to become lost. Well, friends, Swami has a nature of believing in immediate adventures or urgent adventures that make him lost in something. And there are various incidents in the story when he becomes lost in some idea, some concept. Let's say a moment of panic or a moment of overjoyness, a moment of happiness. But then suddenly after some time, he comes back to the present world. He accidentally turned his real life into a metaphor for his mental and emotional life. And by finding himself in real life, he also finds a kind of emotional resolve for his panic. Well, friends, I must say that Swami's life is just like a metaphor. Metaphor means he is, let's say, a different kind of person, but he behaves like a different kind of person. He has a different mental life, but on the other hand, he has a different emotional life. And in this way, we can say that he is in the dilemma of the real life and the virtual life. And thus, whenever he want to come out from some emotional panic, from some emotional distress, he goes back to his virtual world, suggesting the irony of dilemma between the real world and the virtual world. Let us now talk about the concept of humor after irony. And here let us first talk about the personality of Rajam and Mani. How Rajam is humorous in different situations, how Mani is humorous in different situations, and how their behavior, let's say, entertains the readers of this novel. The narration of school incidents is full of fun, which are entirely natural. Natural means just like school kids behave in the school, these kids are also behaving. So we cannot see that they are artificial in their attitude. Even then, there is a humorous touch into their activities. We feel fresh, we feel overjoyed, we start thinking about our own school days, and thus this humor becomes successful by R.K. Narayan. When Mani and Rajam quarrel with each other, Swami becomes mediator between them. Now, friends, mediator is a very heavy word for a boy. But then, if there is a fight between Mani and Rajam, Swami is the mediator. If there is a fight between Mani and Swami, Rajam is the mediator, and same happens to Mani also. Now, mediator means if, let's say, two people stop talking to each other, the third person will try to communicate one person's message to another person, and vice versa. So in this way, we can understand that how these people are the true, let's say, representatives of friendship of a school. Swami conveys Mani's messages to Rajam and Rajam's messages to Mani. Due to their diplomatic relations, quarrel takes place between Mani and Rajam. Well, friends, I must say that if we compare, let's say, Swami with Rajam and Mani, then Swami is more innocent, Swami is less diplomatic, Swami is more passionate, Swami is more emotional, and Rajam and Mani are more diplomatic as compared to Swami. Humor emerges when we see that two boys, Rajam and Mani, employ Swami as their mediator. In fact, they are very close to each other on the ground. Well, friends, there is one scene when three people are sitting at a place, Rajam, Swami and Mani. Now, Swami is sitting between Rajam and Mani, and Rajam is speaking to Swami, and the voice is so clear that even Mani can hear it because they are sitting very close to each other. But there is a very humorous situation. Mani ignores what he has heard from the mouth of Rajam, and then the same message when Swami communicates to, let's say, Mani, then Mani again replies to Swami, and then Swami conveys that message to Rajam. So there is a very humorous situation which emerges in this novel. This is illustrated by the following. Well, let us talk about the, let's say, quotation itself, the sentence itself, to get a glimpse what had happened into that situation. And I quote, "When the work for the day was over, Swaminathan, Mani and Rajam adjourned to the secluded spot to say what was in their mind. Swaminathan stood between them and acted as the medium of communication. They were so close that they could have heard each other even if they had spoken in whispers, just like I said. They were sitting very close to each other. But even then, they needed a mediator. But it was a matter of form between enemies to communicate through a medium. Mani faced Swaminathan steadily and asked, "Are you a man?" Rajam flared up and shouted, "Which dog doubts it?" Swaminathan turned to Mani and said ferociously, "Which dog doubts it? Which dirty dog doubts it?" Well, it is a very humorous situation, people. This person, now Mani want to communicate this message to Rajam, that Rajam do not have manly characteristics into him. He is not as brave as men, but he do not want to communicate directly this message to Rajam. So he, let's say, tells this message to Swami, and then Swami repeats the sentence in the same manner. Swami repeats this sentence to Rajam saying, "Which dirty dog doubts it?" So now this is a very humorous situation. Why? Because Rajam has already heard this message. And then Mani also knows that Rajam had heard this message. And there is a clear communication, indirect communication, which is going on between Mani and Rajam. But even then, Swami is seriously playing the role of a mediator, suggesting that Swami is a very innocent boy. Swami do not know diplomacy. Swami knows how to cooperate with his friends. "Have you the courage to prove that you are a man?" asked Mani. Now Mani speaks this sentence in Swami and Friends to, let's say, to Swami, and then Swami has to communicate this to Rajam. Swaminathan turned to Rajam and repeated it. How? Repeated Swaminathan to Mani. "Meet me at the river near Nalappa's grove tomorrow evening." Near Nalappa's grove, Swaminathan was pleased to echo. "What for?" asked Rajam. "To see if you can break my head." "Oh, to pieces," said Rajam. So now, friends, in this discussion you can see that what Rajam is saying, Swami is repeating that sentence to Mani. And then what Mani is saying, that sentence is same, let's say in the similar manner repeated by Swami to Rajam. So we can understand here that both the boys, Rajam and Mani, they are trying to challenge each other. They are trying to fight each other. And they are, let's say, they are simply giving these statements of breaking other person's head. But are they seriously aware what is going to happen after the breaking of head? There will be a bloodshed. The person may die. But these are just the kids. They are not matured minds. They do not know much about the consequences of such a brutal fight. But even then, they are challenging each other because they want to prove that now they are not school kids, but they are a matured person. They are a matured adult. Just like you and me felt when we were in schools. When we were in schools and some of our relative or family member treated us like an immature person, like a kid, we felt offended. We wanted, let's say, to behave like a matured person, like a dominating person, like a person who is self-dependent. And in the same manner, these people, Rajam and Mani, are behaving in this scene. Let us now talk about the humor visible in the scenes related to cart driver. Friends, as I told you that it was a very remote area. So there were carts available with horses in that area. In the present time, you may not find the cart drivers standing on the railway stations or bus stands. But as the Malgudi was a very remote area, So there were cart drivers, and thus they had also some role to play in this novel, Swami and Friends. Mani, Rajam, and Swaminathan act like police inspectors and hold a cart driver on the charge of trespassing. Well, I told you that they are trying to behave like a matured person. Mani, Rajam, and Swaminathan, they try to act like a police inspector, just like a police officer stops someone moving on the road and ask about the identity or ask the, let's say, threatening questions, the interrogating questions to the person. In the same manner, Mani, Rajam, and Swaminathan asks some questions why the person has trespassed a particular area. The car driver was, let's say, confused on those questions. They ordered the boy to get down and said that they were the police and that the culvert was weak. They will not permit him to move on unless he shows them his pass. The cart driver was also a boy. And in that situation, the cart driver was confused that has he committed some crime. They asked him that why did he trespass this area or this, let's say, pass or this road was not for cart drivers. Then why did he thought of, let's say, moving on this road? The boy had no pass. He was frightened and begged and prayed to them to let him move on. They asked him a number of questions. Well, let us talk about those questions and try to understand that how the discussion between the cart driver and between, let's say, Swami and his friends becomes humorous. Sometimes it is frightening, sometimes it is vulnerable, and sometimes it is humorous. What is your name? Asked Rajam. Karuppan, answered the boy. Age? I don't know, sir. You don't know? Swami, write 100, said Rajam. No, sir, no, sir. I am not 100. Mind your business and hold your tongue. You are 100. I will kill you if you say no. What is your bullock's name? I don't know, sir. Now, in these situations, you see, they are asking silly questions from that cart driver. The name of that cart driver is Karuppan. They ask the age of that cart driver. Maybe that cart driver is an illiterate boy. He don't know his age. He don't know his birth date. So he said, I don't know my age. So then they said, please note down that the age of this boy is 100 years. Now this is very funny. How can a 10 or 12 years or 13 years old boy look like a 100 years old aged person? But they were trying to make fun of that boy Karuppan. Then they asked another silly question from him, the name of the bullock which was plowed in that cart. So again, this person Karuppan says that he don't know the name of that bullock. Swami write Karuppan again. Sir, this is my name, not the bullock's. Again, a very humorous situation occurs. Swami says that we will write the name of your bullock also as Karuppan. Then Karuppan says, how can you do that? Karuppan is my name. My bullock's name is something different. Please do not write my bullock's name as my name. They ignored this and Swaminathan wrote Karuppan against the name of the bullock. They finally sign off on a paper and hand it to the cart boy and asked him to leave. There was maybe useless things written on that paper. It was not a challan receipt, but they signed on that paper, writing the name of Karuppan and the name of the bullock as also Karuppan. And then they asked Karuppan to leave that place. Another humorous situation in, let's say, in this novel Swami and Friends is created in the, let's say, situation of cricket when there was a, let's say, discussion on cricket going on between Swami and his friends. Let us talk about that situation and try to understand how much funny discussions can happen between the schoolboys. The incidents of cricket talk and preparations for the cricket match are very humorous. They are talking about the different cricket players and watching the cricket players' pictures. Now, these boys, they are talking about the game of cricket, how grand the game of cricket is, how much popular the game of cricket is. And they had few pictures of the cricket players and they were looking at those pictures, talking about this game. There is a great excitement for the naming of the club. Well, friends, these kids wanted to create a cricket club. Now, if I tell you, creating a cricket club is a very tough task. You have to do lot of documentation. Then you have to take permission from the government. And then you have to, let's say, popularize your cricket club. But these people, although they are school kids, they are thinking about forming a cricket club. Every member of the team suggesting various names such as Friends 11, Jumping Stars, Excelsior, Champion 11, and finally the simple Malgudi Cricket Club because of its irresistible magical association with the MCC. Friends, there were various names which came out from the mind of these schoolboys. The names are written here, let's say Champions 11 or Friends 11, etc. But finally, they gave a name to their club which is named as Malgudi Cricket Club. Why did they chose this name for their own club? Because already there was a cricket club, very famous, existed in that locality with the name as Malgudi Cricket Club, MCC. The boys are talking about the playing bat. One of them says that the bat is wonderful and heavy. They were now started talking about the bat, how they have to play with the bat, how they have to throw the ball. They were started discussing about all these things. It seems that there are springs inside the bat so that when ball touches it, the ball flies in the air. Well, friends, as I told you earlier also that cricket was a game introduced in India by the Britishers. So when the Indians watched that how the ball comes near the bat and then the batsman, let's say, puts the ball in the, let's say, boundary, they feel very much excited. So now these boys started talking about these, let's say, the normal procedures of playing cricket. These non-entities called MCC Malgudi write to the sports dealer in Madras the language and the easy confidence behind them. There is neither cash nor credit, prompting the dealers to honor the letter. Well, friends, well, if you have to start some club, you need to have the contact of the sports dealer. You need to have some money to buy bat and ball and other accessories. But these schoolboys, they have nothing, no cash or no credit in the market. Then how are they going to achieve this aim? They try to make it as their dream to make this Malgudi Cricket Club. To their great delight, the much awaited letter from Messrs. Binns did at last arrive along with the large catalogue. Ultimately, they sent a request to some, let's say, dealer in the city, and then the dealer sent a large catalogue. Catalogue means in which there will be a list of, let's say, price rates, how much bat costs, how much ball costs, and how much other accessories related to cricket costs. So such kind of large catalogue was sent to them. However, still it was not clear that whether Messrs. Binns would send them the ordered items. So although they received the catalogue, but they were not sure that whether they are going to get these items through that dealer named as Messrs. Binns or not. In the reply letter, the firm had asked to pay 25% of their order as an advance, but the three friends failed to understand the meaning of the letter. Well, when we talk about such kind of business deals, they are very tough to understand. The 25% of the payment, how can that be done? Are they getting discount 25% or they have to pay 25%? They were confused because the letter language was very legal, just like an agreement which we do in the court. Then they concluded that the letter was sent by mistake to Rajam, whereas in reality is what meant for somebody else. Now, just like school kids behave, they ultimately came to a conclusion that letter has been sent, this quotation has been sent to a wrong address. That letter do not belong to them, but somehow through a mismanagement it came to them. Hence, with the funny covering letter, it was returned to them. Then there was a funny covering letter also through their side. Let us read the language and try to enjoy the pleasure in the writing of R.K. Narayan. We are very sorry that you sent me somebody's letter. We are returning this somebody's letter. Please send our things immediately. Now, these schoolboys wrote 3 or 4 lines. Maybe they don't know much to write in English language. So they wrote only 3 or 4 lines suggesting that someone else's letter is sent to them and they have ordered few accessories related to cricket and they expected the very soon delivery of those accessories. Let us now talk about the Swami and Father. How Swami and Father had a humorous conversation with each other. Friends, I must say that when we were kids, when we were going to our school, the father used to threaten us, the father used to shout on us if we do something wrong. So the father is the representative of authority in the house. The father is representative of discipline in the house. Through the distinct perceptions of a distinct age, Narayan creates comedy scenes in his novel. There are various perceptions which Swami had, and those perceptions of the Swami and other characters, they are translated, they are transformed into the comedy scenes with in the writing of R.K. Narayan. The perceptions of a boy differ from the perceptions of the adult. We know that the father might think in a different manner, the son or the daughter might think in a different manner. Narayan has presented his observations in the episode in which Swami's father tried to teach him, through which his awareness of incongruities and discrepancies is clearly seen. Well, there are various scenes in the story, friends, where we see that father is observing the behavior of Swami and then he is teaching Swami something. Then he is explaining Swami something and how Swami is learning from those suggestions of father. This is very important part of this story. The conversation between Swami and his father is given below. Now, let us read about this, let's say, these direct lines from the text and try to understand that how much, let's say, conversations the father and son used to have with each other. How many days is it since you have touched your book? Father asked as he blew off the fine layers of dust on Swaminathan's books and cleared the web that an industrious spider was weaving between the corner of the table and pile of the books. Now, this scene is very humorous, friends. There was a dust on the books of Swaminathan. The father went into his room and saw that Swaminathan has not read his books or not moved those books from the table from a very long time. On the other hand, there was also a spider web between the corner of the table and pile of the books, suggesting that Swami is not paying attention on his studies and father is very much concerned, just like other fathers into our families. Swaminathan viewed this question as a gross breach of promise. Now, when Swaminathan looks at this situation, when he hears the sentence of his father, he feels, let's say, a gross breach of the relationship between father and him. Let us now read the conversation between father and Swaminathan and try to enjoy the humorous touch into it. Should I read when I have no school? Do you think you have passed the BA? Father asked. Now, this discussion is happening when Swaminathan has holidays in the school. So, Swaminathan asks his father that why should I read when there are holidays in the school? Father counters him, saying that Swami, have you completed your education? Have you completed BA? How can you say that in just some holidays you do not want to study? Father asked, I mean, father, when the school is closed, when there is no examination, even then should I read? What a question, you must read. But father, you said before the examination that I needn't read. After they were over, even Rajam does not read. Now, friends, this sentence suggests that Swaminathan makes the Rajam as his role model. Swaminathan says that when there are no examinations, when there are no classes, Rajam also do not study, then why should I study? Now, friends, you have to understand that the school boys, they know very limited number of people. They have a very limited sphere of understanding. They have a very limited sphere of perceptions. So, Swaminathan do not have much exposure to the outer world, to so many people. He don't know much about the world. So, what Rajam or his other classmates, let's say, think or how they behave, Swaminathan also tries to behave in this manner. To make his argument strong, Swami cites the example of Rajam. He says to his father that Rajam, the cleverest student of our class, he does not read during the vacation. Swaminathan is trying to justify his wrong act in front of his father. He is trying to, let's say, take the shed of Rajam's behavior, saying that Rajam is the topper of our class. Even then, he do not study in holidays, in vacations, then why should I? At the same time, he all of a sudden remembers Rajam's complaint of his tuition teacher who comes for 2 hours a day, thrice a week. Then this person, Swaminathan, he also want to change the topic from this book to some other issue. So he talks about Rajam's complaint of the tuition teacher. There is some tuition teacher who is teaching Rajam, and how that tuition teacher, let's say, has some, let's say, problems in his behavior were complained by Rajam, and he discussed all those things to Swami. Rajam has to tolerate his home tutor who posters him for 2 hours even in the vacation. Now there is some tuition teacher who is coming to, let's say, disturb Rajam even in the vacations. Swaminathan starts talking about it. However, father cannot utter a single word against his argument, but he stands over Swami. Father orders him to blow out the dust over his books and to clean his table. Father, just like he is as a serious person, as a matured person, he knows that all these excuses are lame excuses. Swaminathan had nothing to say. So he asked Swami to, let's say, again concern on the, let's say, cleaning of books and starts studying. As Swami receives orders from his father, he executes the order within no time. Well, a boy has no choice. If the father has ordered something, if the father has ordered him to clean the dust from the books and start, or let's say, studying, Swaminathan has no choice. So he stops giving, let's say, such kind of excuses to father, and he starts following the order. He starts to blow out dust over his books. He carefully catches the industrious spider, takes it to the window, and throws it outside the window. Swami catches that spider and throws him outside the window, and he cleans his books. After throwing a spider outside the window, he observes for a while. It is swinging from the strand that gleams in 100 nice and delicate tints. Well, friends, as I told you before also, that Swaminathan is a person who is a nature lover. When he takes that spider out, throws that spider out, he looks at the colors which are visible outside the window. Maybe in the, let's say, the body of the spider, or maybe somewhere out. I don't know. But then Swaminathan has a, let's say, a very common behavior of, let's say, thinking about the nature and then losting in the nature in various situations in this novel. His father gets angry on him and says, "Will you waste the whole day to throw out the spider?" Now Swami, after the threatening of the father, comes back to this real world from his virtual world. All of a sudden, an idea comes in his mind that he wants a companion like a spider. So he does not throw it out, but secretly keeps the spider inside his pocket, and he pretends it by shaking his hand outside the window. Well, we see this is a very funny act, friends. This is a very humorous act. Swaminathan was supposed to throw that spider out, but rather than throwing that spider out, he thinks that the spider can also be his friend, and he puts it into his pocket. And then he comes back to father, let's say, behaving in a manner that he has thrown the spider out of the window. He returns to his father and resumes his duty of studying, sitting on the study table and studying, which his father has ordered him. In the other incident, when his father gives an arithmetic lesson, Narayan's observation is clearly seen. After half an hour, Swami sits in his father's room with slate and pencil. His father puts a sum before him by saying that Rama wants to earn 15 annas from 10 mangoes which he has with him. Friends, in this situation, the father is teaching mathematics to Swami. He asks a question from Swami, and Swami has to answer it. So Swami has his slate and pencil, and he is trying to respond to the father's question. Krishna wants to buy only 4 mangoes. How much will Rama demand from Krishna for 4 mangoes? Now these are the arithmetical questions which father is asking from Swami related to, let's say, the average of something or related to the calculation of something. To this question, Swami gazes and gazes with a strange sight, but he cannot get any answer. Maybe Swami is weak in arithmetics. Or maybe he is thinking that father is asking him very tough questions. He reads the sum often, and every time he receives a new meaning of his reading. He behaves as if he were trapped in a maze test. Well, friends, Swami think that the father's question are very tough. The more he reads the question, the different kind of ideas comes into his mind. Once he reads the question, a different kind of formula or a different kind of answer comes into his mind. Then he again reads the question, and then he starts thinking about the solution of that question in a different manner. And thus, Swami gets confused. At one hand, he thinks to solve the answer of given sum, whereas on the other hand, he thinks about the mangoes and his mouth begins to water. Now, friends, this is a very humorous situation. Father was asking Swami to calculate the number of mangoes or the percentage, And Swami starts thinking of eating those mangoes because he was a mango lover. He thinks about Rama, that why he wants 15 annas for his 10 mangoes, what type of person Rama is. Now, such kind of innocent questions are going on in the mind of Swami, which has no relation to the solution of that problem. But even then, Swami asked those questions from Rama, a virtual character in his, let's say, mind, that why would, let's say, Rama want 15 annas for 10 mangoes? This is something which is, let's say, illogical. He now compares Rama with Shankar and thinks that if he is like Shankar, no one can help him to make 15 annas from his 10 mangoes. Well, in this situation also, the things which are useless, the things which Father never expected Swami to think, Swami starts thinking about all these things. He starts comparing the character of Rama with the character of Shankar, and in this way, all these funny things related to the mangoes are going on in his mind. Further, he compares Krishna with the pea and shows uncountable sympathy for him. Another character, Krishna, which was there in the question asked by the father, he was expecting some arithmetic calculations from Swami in that question, but Swami starts thinking about those names, those characters, which was not required into that situation. His father was reading a newspaper when Swami is thinking about mangoes, Rama, and Krishna. Father was thinking that Swami is trying to find a solution to those questions, but Swami again lost into his virtual world. His father demands solution of the sum from Swami. Swami puts a question that whether mangoes are ripe or not. Now, this is a very funny question. It has nothing to do with mathematical calculations. But Swami asked this question to his father, that whether mangoes were properly ripe or not. It has nothing to do with the question. Now, friends, through this lecture, we were trying to understand about the personalities of Swami, about the personality of Rajam, Mani, his father, his teachers, Karuppan, and various characters, and how these characters were trying to create an ironical situation, a humorous situation into this novel, Swami and Friends. Well, I must, let's say, try to conclude this lecture on a very serious note that R.K. Narayan was able to maintain a balance between irony and humor into this novel. On one hand, in ironical situations, he is talking about the condition of India under the British rule. India was economically, very socially, very backward. There was casteism, there was regionalism, there was, let's say, discrimination into the society. On the other hand, these children had their own world of friends. Although there is discrimination also, Rajam feels superior from other classmates. But then there is, let's say, a balance between irony and humor, which R.K. Narayan has successfully produced in this novel Swami and Friends. And which is why when we read this novel, on one hand, we will feel entertained, we will feel enjoyed, we will feel happy, we will feel fresh. And on the other hand, we will think about the Indian scenario, how much serious the situation was in the British rule in Indian scenario. When we think about the protests going on into the society of this small town Malgudi, we will try to understand that when Swami will mature and his friends will mature, they will become a man. They will again start thinking not about these, let's say, trivial issues of mango or solving mathematical questions, or let's say becoming mediator in the group, but they have to think about the broader issues of making their country free from the British rule. That is all for today. I thank you again